This is the Wrestling Old Head. You have entered the portal of pro wrestling.
What the world is watching.
Is MJF really the fourth member of the Hurt Syndicate, or are we being swerved? No Strickland. Let's talk about it. This is the portal of pro wrestling. I am the Wrestling Old Head. Welcome. And today we're going to talk about MJF in the Hurt Syndicate and what that means, because they have been stretching this rubber band so thin that it's going to snap. This is an angle which I don't mind. I think they're really pulling this out, stretching this as long as they can, and it's really keeping my interest. So I'm really not complaining. This is one of the more exciting programs that they have in AEW right now. They seem to quarterly or every few months they have one angle that really draws my attention and gets me to tune in, which is good because you want more viewers tuning in for something that is more of a variety show, which is what AEW is starting to become, as more of a variety show. There's a little bit of everything. Like, I was listening to Rob Van Dam's podcast and he had Taz on, and Taz was saying that ECW was like that. It was like they wanted it to be like an ice cream shop where you had a bunch of different flavors. It wasn't just vanilla. And I understand that, and I understand what he means by that, and I'm hoping that we see something like that with AEW. I know they've been that way for better or worse. It just didn't seem there was any correlation. There wasn't any through lines. The things that was happening weren't threaded. So in the regards of ice cream, if you were at an ice cream place and you thought you were going for just ice cream, and ice cream had 3 flavors, and then they had hot dogs, and they had hamburgers, and then or maybe that's a bad analogy, but the idea is that with AEW there was no congruency. There wasn't anything that was like defining the brand. With ECW, it was they were a band of rebels. It felt like you were being invited into a special club because the crowd was so unique. Their reactions to things was so unique. The wrestlers that showed up, they got to be a little bit more of who they are and less of the animated characters that you saw in primetime wrestling around them, in the form of WCW, in the form of the WWF at that time. So there was an opportunity, there was a wide open avenue to be the anti-professional wrestling, and ECW took it and they went yard. With AEW, I feel like they have that opportunity given the landscape of the WWE and considering where they are at currently and where they could be going as far as sports entertainment and the way that they are expanding their professional wrestling portfolio. You are going to see high production, over the top cinematic experience with a very UFC type of format in the way that they present their product on PLEs and big events, right? Like, the AEW can be the antithesis in the sense that they can provide what more traditional wrestling fans might feel they're not getting consistently in the WWE, which is an opportunity to get the old school angle. So if the WWE is going to do a bloodline angle that looks like it could be a Sopranos television series, AEW can present an angle that more so reminds you of classic professional wrestling, the very simple angle where it was like, you took my girl, or you were my tag team partner, I turned on you, or we're both going for the championship belt and there's a competitive spirit that exists, and we're going through a best of 7 series and showing us who the best superstar is, or whatever. I think that AEW can capitalize on that. So when I see that they're doing storylines that keep you interested and hooked week to week, then I get a little excited about that, because it reminds me that AEW isn't just about great wrestling, that sometimes they can present a storyline that can hook you week to week. And I feel like we're getting that with the Hurt Syndicate and MJF. And where this storyline is going, it's anybody's guess. But this past Wednesday on AEW Dynamite, we did see that the Hurt Syndicate gave 3 thumbs up to MJF and invited him into the Hurt Syndicate. Does that mean he's an official member of the Hurt Syndicate? Nah. I don't believe that MJF is going to make it a week as a member of the Hurt Syndicate. I mean, maybe he'll make it a week, but you get what I'm saying here. I think MJF is in line to... Now, there are rumors on the internet that the Hurt Syndicate would turn on MJF. I don't see that happening, and let me explain why. First of all, I don't think they should go down the road where MJF is considered a babyface. And I do believe if the Hurt Syndicate jumped MJF and turned him inside out in the middle of the ring, then it would turn him into a sympathetic figure that would get cheered when he goes after the Hurt Syndicate and they get their comeuppance, right? I think that it's kind of it's booking 101 in that regard. If a group jumps another guy, then the guy that they jumped is going to get cheered because they want to see that group get their asses beat. And I think that if they go that route, I don't think it's a good idea, because I don't think MJF works as a babyface, because they tried that trial run, and although there were some bright spots, I think that the fans are endeared to MJF for being an asshole. And so you're going to get some fans that cheer him, but his character is that of someone that you just don't like. He's an elitist, right? He's pompous, he's arrogant, he's a weasel, you know? Like, I think that that's his sweet spot. That's where he should stick for now. And the Hurt Syndicate, even though they may be considered a group that could be heelish in regard to the way that they handle their business, pun intended, they are naturally getting cheered for their cool factor, for their aura, for what the young kids are saying, you know, for their swag or whatever is what I was hearing in previous generations. They have a style that depicts them as one of the most unique groups in professional wrestling, and definitely in AEW, the way AEW is presented. So because of that, the crowd is going to love them. And I do think that there are aspects of the Hurt Syndicate, especially recently, that accentuate certain characteristics that will get them cheered. So because of that, I think they should keep them in their position as tweeners / babyface. I think MJF should stay weasel, pompous, arrogant, heel. And how we get there can be very interesting. I believe you can go two different routes here. One of the routes is a very popular route amongst those on the internet, and that is of the reuniting of the Pinnacle. We don't have Shawn Spears, we don't have Tully Blanchard, but we have 3 of the 5 that I just that were in that group that are still with AEW, and that is FTR and MJF. Now, the idea would be that because FTR are currently heels, that you pair up FTR with MJF to go after Bobby Lashley, Shelton Benjamin, and MVP. MVP obviously wouldn't be a full-time professional wrestler in this regard. He is the business leader, if you will, the representative. So then you would bring in Cedric Alexander. That's right. Another popular rumor going around in the wrestling internet community is that you have Cedric the Entertainer, whose 90-day no-compete with the WWE should be coming to an end, and then he should be showing up on AEW. It just makes so much sense. That is the original group at its genesis. It was Cedric, Shelton, Bobby, and MVP. So get the band back together. That is where I feel like we're heading. Eventually, Cedric the Entertainer, Cedric Alexander, is going to be showing up in AEW, and that's how we're going to have that. So when you've got those 3 on one side with MVP, what are we going to do with MJF, and how should he join up with FTR? Now, you already have Stokely Hathaway on one side, MVP on the other, FTR on one side, Bobby Lashley and Shelton Benjamin, I keep wanting to say Cedric the Entertainer, Cedric Alexander, and MJF. It kind of works out. We got something there. An FTR against Bobby Lashley and Shelton Benjamin, or even Shelton Benjamin and Cedric Alexander, I think they could be great tag team matches, and really, really good for a very for a tag division in AEW that's lacking depth. I'll just put it that way. So you can go that route. Another route that you can go is something that I've concocted, and here we go again, Wrestling Old Head with a little fantasy cooking. It's one of my favorite things that I like to do. So one of the things that I thought about was pairing MJF and reuniting him with Wardlow, hear me out, and Alex Hammerstone. Now, here's why I think that would be an interesting pairing. MJF had a stable in Major League Wrestling called the, it was called the Dynasty, I believe. Don't hold me to that, but I believe it was the Dynasty, and it was in Major League Wrestling, and it started with Richard Holiday, MJF, and Alex Hammerstone, right? And then I think they got Aria Blake, who was a manager at the time. Gino Medina, I think, was a part of that. A guy named Grogan, I think. I'm not sure. But anyways, they were kind of a frat group, right? It was MJF's group. These guys were friends. They wore suits. They were kind of like, the new Four Horsemen. Now, the Pinnacle was also a similar type of a stable, right? So there's some kind of continuity there going on. You know what I mean? Now, Hammerstone and MJF, they go back like four flats on a Cadillac. So we've already established their history. And now we have Wardlow and MJF. Now, how do you get Wardlow back with MJF? Now, I understand that there was the whole devil angle was totally like thrown off by injuries, by setbacks, right? Adam Cole was hurt. There was a few other injuries. Wardlow was hurt. So they had to pivot and go a different route. Now, I know Tony Khan isn't the best with the pivots, but here's how they can bring it back around again. Adam Cole, Roderick Strong, Kyle O'Reilly, I think it was Matt Taven and Mike Bennett as well. They all formed that stable with Wardlow after they turned on MJF. And then MJF disappeared for a while. Adam Cole was hurt, and they were trying to see if they can get MJF back once Adam Cole was 100% and keep this storyline going. And that's when MJF came back as in his Triple H, jacket and whatnot. Didn't go as planned. So they had to squash that and move in a different direction. So with Wardlow coming back, if he were to side with MJF, I understand that it's kind of like, oh, here we go again. We're starting from scratch again with Wardlow. But you can say that MJF reached out to Wardlow when Adam Cole and his group of friends didn't even contact him. And they did, if you remember, during that whole Devil Group stable, they really abused Wardlow, and they were setting up for a scenario where Wardlow was going to turn on the group. That was kind of the direction that they were going in. And so by bringing Wardlow back to team with MJF, it's almost like MJF reached out to Wardlow when no one else would. And so you have this pairing of this tag team in Hammerstone and Wardlow that can be a formidable tag team. They're a new tag team, but the tie-in is that MJF is bringing them in. You've got these two powerhouses that can be formidable challengers for Bobby Lashley and Shelton Benjamin. It can reignite an interest in where MJF is going with his group. He can call it something completely different. I did see that he was bringing Mark Sterling in as a lawyer. He was mentioning that, so you can also bring him in as a mouthpiece. You can bring Alicia Atout in as his valet, because that is his real life girlfriend. She has really good mic skills. She's got the charisma, so they can pull that off as well. There's so much that they can toy with. I understand that it's kind of like the low-hanging fruit to go with Stokely Hathaway and the FTR, but I really feel if they want to go somewhere different and expand their tag team division and get some excitement into the product, they should do something like Wardlow and Hammerstone if it's possible. I know Hammerstone is floating around. He's a free agent right now. WWE doesn't seem to have any interest in him. Wardlow has disappeared off the face of the earth. I'm sure he's been hurt, and I'm sure he's interested in getting back on television. This is a way to get him right back into the thick of things. Also, with the tag team division, now I've noticed something with the tag team division is that it kind of doesn't have an identity either. It's kind of floating around, and people don't know really what it is. Bobby Lashley and Shelton Benjamin are sitting atop the tag division And you can't really pit them against high flyers and really believe that the high flying guys are going to win against these big powerhouses that are basically chopping down the flying tree branches that are these lightweight guys, like their Top Flight and Crew and all that. Like, you, unless there's like some kind of nefarious activity, you really can't believe that Bobby Lashley and Shelton Benjamin would lose to those guys. So I feel like the direction that the tag division should be going in, and again, here I am fantasy cooking, is that it should go more in the heavyweight division, right? We saw glimpses of that with the Lance Archer and Brian Cage and the Gates of Agony, and Bobby Lashley and Shelton Benjamin. You can expound on that and bring in Wardlow and Hammerstone that would fit right in with that whole imagery. So then you can get these powerhouse matches in the form of tag team matches, and then you can keep your heavyweight division, the other titles in the mid card free of those heavyweights, and then Tony Khan can, which he hasn't really been good with the big guys, the powerhouses, the giants, if you will. He can figure out how to utilize them appropriately for his product by putting them in the tag division. I really think it solves a large gap that Tony Khan has had in the AEW product in regards to powerhouses. There's been no big time big slapping meat guy that has been the AEW World Heavyweight Champion. So it doesn't seem like that's Tony Khan's, that's his, go-to as far as divisions. You got guys like Kenny Omega. You got guys like Will Ospreay, Swerve Strickland. Those guys are at the top of the card and present themselves as future main event heavyweight champions after Jon Moxley gets dethroned. So in order to keep those bigger guys, those bigger heavyweights in flux and in the product, I think in the tag division, I think it's wide open, because that division right now is going through a huge overhaul and there's not a whole lot of depth there. So anyways, that's where I feel like it's going, in my opinion. I don't know if it's even feasible. I do think it would be very exciting if they were to go that route. So then you got guys like Josh Alexander and Konosuke Takeshita, Hammerstone and Wardlow. You got Bobby Lashley and Shelton Benjamin, Gates of Agony, Lance Archer and Brian Cage. You got so many big guys that are up there in the tag team division that could really make it exciting and really differentiate themselves from the WWE product, where they have like the Street Profits and Fraxium and some of the high-flying guys like Los Garza that are even Pretty Deadly to a degree, right, are up there and they're doing their thing. This will really differentiate and maybe force the WWE to go competitive with it and really present the War Raiders and some of their heavyweight tag teams in a different light. Who knows? But competition brings that out, and AEW can be on the forefront, which they desperately need. They desperately need to present something that is kind of unique to their brand, unique to AEW, so that it can draw more interest to their product. So that's what I'm thinking. That's where I feel like they might be going with MJF and the Hurt Syndicate. As long-winded as that was, if you are still listening, trust me, you're a real one. If you like what I have to say, please comment down below and let me know what you think of MJF, Hammerstone, and Wardlow as a group, as a triple threat. Or do you feel like they're going to go with MJF and FTR, the more popular option with Stokely Hathaway? Now, I do see that happening as well, and I wouldn't be mad if you had something to say about that, but I'm here for a conversation, so let me know what you think. And thumbs up on the way out, you guys. Hit the notification bell, because you never know when I'm about to drop a commentary on what I feel for professional wrestling. Until then, this is the Wrestling Old Head. You have entered the portal of pro wrestling. Stay tuned for more.